on a hot afternoon is one of the simplest pleasures in the world. A clear glass, a slice of lemon, a handful of sugar, cold water, ice clinking against the glass. It looks timeless, almost inevitable. Yet for most of human history, almost every ingredient inside that glass was astonishingly rare. The lemon traveled thousands of miles before it reached Europe. Sugar was once worth so much that it was locked in royal cupboards alongside precious spices. Ice had to be harvested from frozen lakes, packed in sawdust, and shipped across continents. Even clean drinking water could not always be taken for granted. A drink that now costs only a few coins was once impossible for nearly everyone on Earth. And yet lemonade became far more than a refreshing beverage. Its story follows the rise of ancient trade routes stretching across Asia. It appears in the bustling markets of medieval Cairo, where merchants sold sweet lemon drinks beneath the shadow of towering mosques. It expands alongside Islamic agriculture and Mediterranean commerce. It crosses oceans aboard merchant ships, benefiting from colonial plantations whose wealth depended upon enslaved labor. It survives industrial revolutions, refrigeration, global shipping, and mass advertising before becoming one of the world's most familiar drinks. Every sip contains the fingerprints of empire. Every glass tells a story about migration, technology, agriculture, economics, and power. Lemonade was never simply flavored water. It was the meeting point of civilizations. A drink assembled from ingredients gathered across continents. A recipe impossible without centuries of exploration, conquest, innovation, and exchange. Today it sits quietly on kitchen tables and supermarket shelves around the world, appearing almost too ordinary to notice. But ordinary things often hide extraordinary histories. To understand how lemonade became one of humanity's most recognizable drinks, we need to go back, long before the first glass was ever poured. The story begins not with a drink, but with a tree. Thousands of years ago, in the humid foothills stretching across northeastern India, northern Myanmar, and southwestern China, wild citrus trees grew among dense forests. They were unlike the sweet oranges that dominate grocery stores today. These early fruits were intensely sour, thick-skinned, and filled with fragrant oils that humans quickly learned to appreciate. Modern genetic research suggests that many familiar citrus fruits, including lemons, oranges, and limes, are descendants of only a handful of ancient wild species. The lemon itself is believed to have emerged as a natural hybrid, combining traits from the bitter orange and the citron sometime during antiquity. Long before anyone thought of mixing lemon juice with sugar and water, people valued citrus for entirely different reasons. Its sharp acidity preserved food. Its aromatic peel scented medicines and perfumes. Its juice eased thirst in hot climates. Its fragrance became associated with cleanliness, freshness, and vitality. Across South Asia, citrus fruits appeared in traditional medicine as treatments for digestive disorders, fevers, and infections. Though ancient physicians did not understand vitamin C, generations recognized that these sour fruits possessed remarkable restorative qualities. Knowledge traveled with merchants. As caravans crossed Persia and connected distant civilizations through expanding trade routes, citrus slowly moved westward. The ancient Persian Empire became one of the first great crossroads for the fruit. Persian gardeners refined irrigation techniques that allowed delicate citrus trees to flourish in otherwise harsh environments. Carefully managed orchards transformed rare fruits into cultivated crops, while gardeners experimented with grafting methods that improved flavor and reliability. From Persia, citrus entered the growing world of Islamic civilization. Beginning in the 7th century, the rapid expansion of Islamic caliphates connected territories stretching from Spain to Central Asia. These newly linked lands formed one of history's largest trading systems, allowing plants, ideas, technologies, and foods to circulate with unprecedented speed. This agricultural revolution reshaped entire landscapes. Muslim scholars documented advanced irrigation systems, crop rotation techniques, and botanical knowledge that enabled citrus cultivation across North Africa, the Levant, Sicily, and southern Spain. Lemons flourished where careful irrigation met warm Mediterranean climates. Their bright yellow fruit soon became symbols of refinement. They appeared in palace gardens, in physicians' manuals, in kitchens serving wealthy households, in perfumes carried by merchants, in medicines prepared by scholars. But lemons remained expensive. They required skilled cultivation, favorable climates, and transportation over long distances. Few ordinary people ever tasted one. At this stage, lemons were still a luxury. The world possessed the fruit. It had not yet invented the drink. That transformation would emerge in one of the greatest cities on earth. By the 10th century, Cairo stood among the wealthiest and most cosmopolitan cities in the world. Its crowded streets echoed with dozens of languages. Merchant caravans arrived from Africa, carrying gold and ivory. Ships unloaded spices from India, silk from Asia, and precious goods from across the Mediterranean. Scholars filled libraries containing hundreds of thousands of manuscripts. Engineers managed canals and irrigation systems that fed millions. It was a city where global commerce became everyday life. And among its countless markets, one simple drink quietly appeared. Known as katarmmisat, this early lemonade combined freshly squeezed lemon juice with dissolved sugar and cool water. Contemporary Arabic writings describe vendors preparing and selling sweet lemon beverages throughout Cairo's bustling streets. The recipe sounds almost modern, yet every ingredient represented centuries of innovation. Sugar itself had traveled a remarkable path. Originally cultivated in South and Southeast Asia, sugarcane spread westward through Persia before Islamic agricultural expansion dramatically increased production across Egypt, Syria, and North Africa. Ingenious water-powered mills processed cane into refined crystals, transforming what had once been an exotic luxury into a product available, though still valuable, to urban markets. Without abundant sugar, lemonade could never have existed. Lemon juice alone was simply too sour. The balance between sweetness and acidity created something entirely new. Not medicine, not fruit juice, not flavored water. A refreshing beverage designed purely for enjoyment. That distinction mattered. Human societies have always consumed drinks for survival. Water, milk, fermented beverages, herbal infusions. But lemonade belonged to a growing category of refreshments consumed because they delighted the senses. The drink reflected the prosperity of medieval Islamic cities. Clean water systems made preparation safer. Thriving agriculture ensured de reliable citrus harvest. Expanding sugar production lowered costs. Bustling markets connected growers, refiners, merchants, and customers into an increasingly sophisticated food economy. Professional beverage sellers became familiar figures throughout Cairo. Large ceramic jars kept drinks cool despite the Egyptian heat. Vendors measured portions with practiced precision while customers gathered beneath awnings seeking relief from the relentless sun. A simple transaction. Yet behind it stood farmers tending citrus orchards along the Nile, laborers refining sugar, canal engineers directing irrigation, merchants financing transport, and scholars preserving agricultural knowledge. Lemonade had become more than a recipe. It had become a product of civilization itself. Its popularity gradually spread beyond Egypt into neighboring regions, carried by travelers, merchants, diplomats, and pilgrims moving across the interconnected Islamic world. Wherever lemons could be grown and sugar could be purchased, the drink followed. It was never just lemonade. It represented the convergence of agriculture, engineering, commerce, and taste, a beverage made possible only because multiple civilizations had solved countless problems over many centuries. Soon, however, lemonade would leave the markets of Cairo behind. As empires expanded across seas and continents, the drink would travel farther than anyone could have imagined. And in doing so, it would become entangled with one of the greatest economic transformations in human history. 4. Trade empire expansion. Lemonade did not conquer the world through conquest alone. It traveled with merchants. From the 11th century onward, the Mediterranean became one of history's busiest commercial highways. Venetian, Genoese, Arab, Byzantine, and later Ottoman traders moved endlessly between ports carrying spices, silk, ceramics, grain, textiles, and increasingly, citrus fruit. Lemons were uniquely suited to this expanding network. Unlike softer fruits, they possessed thick skins that protected them during long voyages. Packed carefully into baskets or wooden crates, they could survive weeks at sea before reaching distant markets. Their acidity also made them valuable aboard ships, where fresh produce was otherwise scarce. As commerce intensified, citrus cultivation spread west. Muslim farmers introduced sophisticated irrigation systems and orchard management techniques into Sicily after the island came under Islamic rule in the 9th century. Southern Spain followed a similar path under Al-Andalus, where engineers transformed dry landscapes into flourishing agricultural regions through canals, water wheels, and carefully managed irrigation. Entire valleys became citrus gardens. Travelers marveled at groves fragrant with blossoms, where lemons, oranges, figs, and pomegranates flourished side by side. What had once been an exotic fruit slowly became a defining feature of Mediterranean agriculture. Then came another turning point. The Crusades. Although remembered primarily as religious wars between Christian and Muslim powers from 1096 onward, the Crusades also accelerated cultural exchange. European nobles, merchants, physicians, and pilgrims encountered unfamiliar foods, spices, medicines, and agricultural practices throughout the Eastern Mediterranean. They returned home carrying more than stories. They carried tastes. Citrus fruits became increasingly desirable among Europe's elite. Physicians praised their medicinal properties. Aristocrats admired their fragrance. Wealthy households cultivated lemon trees in sheltered gardens despite colder climates. Lemonade followed. By the Renaissance, sweetened lemon drinks appeared in Italian courts and French banquets. They remained luxuries, reserved for wealthy families who could afford imported sugar and carefully cultivated lemons. But demand continued growing. The rise of maritime empires in the 15th and 16th centuries transformed citrus from a regional specialty into a global commodity. Portuguese navigators carried citrus seeds along routes around Africa to India. Spanish colonists introduced lemon trees throughout the Americas. Missionaries planted orchards in Mexico and California. European settlements from the Caribbean to South America began cultivating citrus wherever climate allowed. For the first time, lemons were growing on multiple continents. The scale of production expanded dramatically. So did the possibilities. Then another discovery quietly changed maritime history. Sailors had long suffered from scurvy, a devastating disease caused by vitamin C deficiency. During long voyages, swollen gums, bleeding wounds, weakness, and eventual death were tragically common. Entire expeditions could lose more men to scurvy than to storms or combat. Although physicians did not yet understand vitamins, experience taught captains that fresh citrus often prevented the disease. By the 18th century, citrus juice became increasingly important aboard naval vessels, particularly within the British Royal Navy after the pioneering work of physician James Lind in 1747 highlighted the effectiveness of citrus against scurvy. The implications stretched far beyond health. Healthier sailors meant longer voyages. Longer voyages meant larger empires. Larger empires meant greater global trade. What appeared to be a simple fruit quietly strengthened the fleets that connected and dominated the world. This was one of history's great hidden feedback loops. The lemon did not merely accompany empire. In small but meaningful ways, it helped sustain it. And wherever lemons traveled, lemonade followed, adapting itself to local tastes while becoming increasingly familiar across Europe, the Americas, and beyond. But another ingredient was about to transform the drink more profoundly than the lemon ever could. Sugar. And the story of sugar is impossible to separate from one of humanity's darkest chapters. 5. Violence, labor, extraction power. If lemons gave lemonade its brightness, sugar gave it mass appeal. It also gave it blood. For centuries, sugar remained a rare luxury consumed primarily by kings, nobles, physicians, and wealthy merchants. Producing refined sugar required enormous labor, specialized equipment, and favorable climates. Prices stayed high, limiting sweetened foods and drinks to the privileged few. Everything changed after European colonial expansion into the Atlantic. Beginning in the 15th century, Portuguese and Spanish colonizers established sugar plantations on Atlantic islands before expanding production across Brazil and the Caribbean. The climate proved ideal. The economics were irresistible. European demand for sugar exploded. To satisfy it, colonial governments and plantation owners required an immense labor force. They found it through violence. Between the 16th and 19th centuries, more than 12 million Africans were forcibly transported across the Atlantic during the transatlantic slave trade. Millions were sent to sugar-producing colonies where they labored under brutal conditions, harvesting cane beneath relentless tropical heat. Sugar plantations became among the deadliest workplaces in the colonial world. The work was exhausting. Harvesting cane demanded speed before the stalks lost their sweetness. Crushing mills operated continuously. Boilers transformed cane juice into crystallized sugar through dangerous, high-temperature processes. Injury was common. Disease spread rapidly. Mortality remained horrific. Many enslaved workers died within only a few years of arrival. Plantation owners often considered replacing laborers cheaper than improving conditions. The profits, however, were extraordinary. By the 18th century, sugar had become one of the most valuable commodities in the global economy. Fortunes were built in London, Amsterdam, Bordeaux, Lisbon, and Liverpool through colonial trade. Banks financed plantations. Insurance companies protected cargoes. Shipbuilders expanded fleets. Governments collected taxes. Entire financial systems became intertwined with sugar. Then prices began to fall, not because sugar lost value, but because production became enormous. What had once been elite luxury gradually entered ordinary households across Europe and North America. Tea became sweeter. Coffee became sweeter. Desserts multiplied. And lemonade changed forever. For the first time, sweetened lemon drinks became accessible beyond aristocratic dining rooms. Street vendors sold them. Taverns served them. Households prepared them during summer months. Children drank what previous generations of monarchs could scarcely have imagined. This democratization carried a terrible irony. Every affordable glass reflected invisible suffering thousands of miles away. Consumers rarely saw the plantations. They did not witness cane fields stretching to the horizon. They did not hear the crack of overseers' whips or the grinding machinery that consumed endless harvests. The sweetness concealed its own history. Yet resistance never disappeared. Enslaved communities preserved cultures, languages, and traditions despite relentless oppression. Revolts erupted repeatedly across the Caribbean and the Americas. The most significant came in Saint-Domingue. Beginning in 1791, enslaved men and women launched the revolution that eventually created Haiti, the first independent black republic in the modern world. The uprising shocked colonial powers. It demonstrated that the plantation system, despite its immense wealth, rested upon constant coercion. This changed everything. Gradually, abolitionist movements gathered momentum. Britain abolished slavery throughout most of its empire in 1833. France permanently abolished it in 1848. The United States followed after the Civil War in 1865. Yet exploitation did not disappear. Indentured labor systems, unequal wages, colonial monopolies, and economic dependency replaced many older forms of coercion. The supply chains evolved. The inequalities often remained. Lemonade survived this transformation. Its ingredients continued becoming cheaper. Its audience continued growing. The drink had become democratic. Its history remained anything but. 6. Turning point revolution, industrial scaling. By the 19th century, lemonade stood on the edge of another revolution. Not agricultural, Industrial. Factories transformed nearly every aspect of daily life, and beverages were no exception. Cities expanded rapidly as millions left rural communities for industrial employment. Urban populations demanded inexpensive, safe, refreshing drinks that could be produced consistently and transported efficiently. Technology answered. Advances in glass manufacturing dramatically lowered the cost of bottles. Improved corks and later metal caps preserved beverages for longer periods. Railroads connected citrus-growing regions with distant cities in days rather than weeks. Then came refrigeration. Before mechanical cooling, ice itself had been a luxury. Entrepreneurs harvested frozen lakes during winter, packed enormous blocks in insulating sawdust, and shipped them across oceans. In the 19th century, American businessman Frederick Tudor built a remarkable global trade exporting natural ice to the Caribbean, South America, India, and beyond. Cold drinks became increasingly fashionable. Mechanical refrigeration soon made them practical year-round. For lemonade, this was transformative. The beverage no longer depended solely upon seasons. Restaurants, cafes, hotels, railway stations, and eventually soda fountains could serve chilled lemonade almost anywhere. Scientific discoveries reinforced this shift. In the 1860s, Louis Pasteur's research on microorganisms revolutionized food safety. Although lemonade itself was not always pasteurized, growing scientific understanding encouraged cleaner production methods, safer water supplies, and improved bottling standards. Public confidence increased. Industrial chemistry introduced standardized flavorings and preservatives. Food manufacturing became increasingly precise. Recipes that once varied from household to household now achieved remarkable consistency. Meanwhile, carbonation was changing consumer tastes. Artificially carbonated beverages, first explored during the 18th century, entered commercial production on a massive scale during the 19th. Sparkling lemonade gained popularity throughout Europe, offering consumers a refreshing alternative to still fruit drinks. What had begun as a handcrafted beverage sold in Cairo's markets evolved into an industrial product manufactured by machines capable of producing thousands of bottles every hour. The scale was unprecedented. Lemonade entered railway kiosks, department stores, public parks, hotels, factories, schools, sporting events. It became one of the defining refreshments of modern urban life. This was no longer simply a recipe passed through generations. It had become an industry. Around the middle of this transformation, viewers might pause to consider just how extraordinary the journey has been. A drink born from medieval markets now depended on global shipping, industrial engineering, refrigeration, chemistry, and international agriculture. If stories like this reveal how ordinary objects quietly shaped civilization, subscribing ensures the next hidden history is never missed. By the early 20th century, another transformation was already underway. Advertising agencies would reshape desire. Corporations would reshape taste. And lemonade would become something its first creators could never have imagined: a global brand. 7. Modern reinvention, corporate era public consequences. The 20th century did not invent lemonade. It reinvented it. For centuries, lemonade had been something people made. Families squeezed fresh lemons into pitchers, dissolved sugar by hand, and served the drink only when citrus happened to be available. Its flavor changed with the harvest. Every household had its own recipe. Industry changed that relationship forever. Instead of making lemonade from ingredients, consumers increasingly bought lemonade as a finished product. The shift began with preservation. As food science advanced, manufacturers discovered new ways to concentrate fruit juice without sacrificing most of its flavor. By removing water, lemon juice became easier to store, cheaper to transport, and available year-round. Powdered drink mixes soon followed, offering convenience on a scale previous generations could scarcely imagine. One of the most influential innovations arrived in 1934 with the introduction of frozen concentrated orange juice research that later influenced the wider fruit juice industry. During and after the Second World War, improvements in food preservation, refrigeration, and logistics accelerated dramatically. Concentrates, powders, and bottled beverages became staples of supermarkets across North America and Europe. Fresh lemons were no longer essential. Lemonade had become technology. Meanwhile, another revolution was unfolding, not in factories but in advertising agencies. Companies no longer sold beverages. They sold emotions. Magazine advertisements portrayed lemonade as the taste of family gatherings, neighborhood picnics, summer vacations, and carefree childhood afternoons. Posters featured smiling children beneath bright skies, condensation running down frosted glasses. The drink became associated with innocence, hospitality, and home. An ordinary beverage had become an emotional symbol. By the middle of the 20th century, multinational beverage companies had perfected the art of branding. Bottled lemonade appeared beside carbonated soft drinks, fruit punches, iced teas, and flavored waters in rapidly expanding supermarkets. Consumers rarely considered where the lemons originated. Yet, global supply chains had become astonishingly complex. Lemons harvested in Argentina could be processed into concentrate, shipped to Europe, blended with sugar produced in Brazil, bottled in Germany, and sold in supermarkets thousands of kilometers away. The drink had become international long before most consumers realized it. Agriculture changed alongside it. California emerged as one of the world's great citrus regions after irrigation projects transformed vast areas into productive orchards. Similar developments occurred in Spain, Italy, Turkey, South Africa, Mexico, and Argentina. Modern citrus farming increasingly relied upon mechanization, scientific breeding, pest management, refrigerated transport, and international commodity markets. The lemon itself became part of a global industrial system. Yet success brought new vulnerabilities. Large monoculture orchards proved susceptible to disease. In recent decades, citrus greening disease, also known as huanglongbing, has threatened orchards across Asia, the Americas, and elsewhere. Spread by tiny insects, the disease weakens trees, reduces fruit quality, and can eventually destroy entire groves. Scientists continue searching for resistant varieties and improved management strategies. Even today, the future of something as ordinary as lemonade depends upon complex agricultural research. Public health introduced another challenge. Throughout the 20th century, sugar consumption rose dramatically in many countries. Sweetened beverages, including commercial lemonades, became subject of increasing medical concern as researchers linked excessive sugar intake with obesity, type 2 diabetes, and cardiovascular disease. Governments responded in different ways. Some introduced sugar taxes. Others required clearer nutritional labeling. Manufacturers experimented with artificial sweeteners, natural alternatives, reduced sugar recipes, and premium products emphasizing freshly squeezed juice. The marketplace shifted once again. Consumers who once demanded convenience increasingly sought authenticity. Freshly pressed lemonade returned to cafes. Farmers' markets celebrated local citrus. Restaurants promoted handcrafted recipes using regional ingredients and less refined sugar. Ironically, industrial success had created nostalgia for the handmade drink that industry itself had nearly replaced. Lemonade had completed another historical circle. It remained one of the world's most recognizable beverages. Yet no two glasses necessarily told the same story. One might come from a backyard tree, another from a multinational supply chain spanning 4 continents. Both belong to the same remarkable history, a history hidden behind extraordinary simplicity. 8. Present-day legacy reflection. Today, lemonade is almost everywhere. It appears at children's fundraisers and roadside stands. It fills pitchers at family gatherings, cafes, restaurants, festivals, and sporting events. Supermarket shelves offer sparkling lemonade, pink lemonade, organic lemonade, sugar-free lemonade, frozen concentrates, powdered mixes, and premium artisanal varieties. Its forms are countless. Its origins are easily forgotten. Yet every glass remains a meeting place of history. The lemon recalls ancient forests in Asia and the agricultural innovations of Persia and the medieval Islamic world. The sugar carries memories of colonial plantations, enslaved labor, and a vast Atlantic economy that reshaped continents. The ice evokes centuries of engineering, from frozen lakes harvested by hand to modern refrigeration that transformed global food distribution. Even the water reflects another long struggle, one involving sanitation, public infrastructure, filtration, and the scientific understanding that made safe drinking water increasingly available to millions. Lemonade is often described as refreshing. Historically, it represents something much larger. It represents connection. No civilization created it alone. It required botanists and farmers, merchants and sailors, engineers and physicians, laborers and factory workers, inventors and advertisers. Its history crosses religions, languages, empires, revolutions, and oceans. This is one of the great patterns hidden inside everyday life. The objects people overlook are often those that travel the farthest. What appears simple is frequently the product of extraordinary complexity. A single glass of lemonade contains thousands of years of migration, innovation, commerce, and human ambition. It was never just a drink. It was a map of civilization. 9. Outro call to action. The next time a glass of lemonade catches the afternoon light, it may be difficult to see it quite the same way again. Behind its bright flavor lies the story of ancient forests, medieval marketplaces, merchant fleets, colonial plantations, industrial factories, refrigerated rail cars, scientific laboratories, and global supply chains. Few drinks have traveled so far or carried so much history while appearing so ordinary. That is the remarkable power of everyday things. They preserve the past in plain sight. If you enjoyed uncovering the hidden history of lemonade, consider subscribing for more documentaries exploring the extraordinary stories behind the foods and drinks that shape our world. And before you go, leave a comment. What part of lemonade's history surprised you the most? Or tell us, what everyday food or drink should we uncover next?